Yes, I finally arrived. Hang on, I'll be with you in just a second here. I'm not ashamed to be a name dropper. Oh man. So I want to go back. I have finally arrived. I am starting to get trolls. It's awesome. Last week I got a guy that warned you, and I'm going to give you the same warning. Don't listen to anything this dipstick has to say. Don't take any advice from this dipstick. That was the first. First of all, I don't know that I ever give advice. If I do, I'm sorry. I don't mean to, because you all know I'm still trying to figure this out myself. Today I got one. It was awesome. The guy said, "Thanks for the ear-shattering music at the beginning, idiot." I'm sorry, he couldn't figure out the knob on his speaker. Anyway, enough about those guys. I wanted to take a minute here just to kind of intro this thing. So in October of 17, my wife and I got to take a vacation. We went back to the UK, some other places. And while we were in the UK, we had the pleasure of hooking up with Gary and his wife, Gary Huston and his wife, and had just a terrific afternoon with them. They are wonderful people. We had a great time. And while I was there, I got to go out to the shop. I got to see the shop for real. I got to see the Smithin Magician, which I think is a cool tool. I got to see a bunch of tongs, punches, and this thing, the grinding wheel, or the belt grinder. Man, I tried to put all that stuff in my pocket, but he caught me. Cool stuff. Anyway, so I have been blessed, I'll say, with getting this guy right here, and you might recognize it from this video here on Gary's site. This is the Smithin Magician that he put together and talked about in one of his recent videos. I don't think it was his last one, but maybe it was his last one. His Mark II, the MK2 Magician. He sent it to me. I'm gonna put it together over here and just see how it works out. Now, one of the things that's got to be changed, and Gary and I have talked about this quite a bit, is this is all metric. So what he's got in here is a die that's 12 millimeter, and a lot of the material on it, for example, these face plates and such are all 10 millimeter. Well, that's great. That's wonderful. But as those of us in the States know, we can't buy it. We can't. It makes no sense to me, but we can't buy metric size anything here. But we can buy ½ inch. And ½ inch is pretty darn close to 12 mil. And so what I'm gonna do is I picked up this piece from the scrapyard the other day in hopes that I could at least get a die and a base part of the die cut out. As it turns out, I actually can get 2 of each, so I'm pretty excited about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out, I'm going to trace around these guys, cut them out, get them ground flat smooth, and then we're going to build this thing up with this inserted in here. Instead of the 12 mil, we're going to do ½ inch. Now that's going to cause me to do a couple of other things, because 12 mil or ½ inch I don't think is going to fit in here. I won't know for sure because there's a little bit of, if I clamp it up, now there's probably, I don't know, if I push it to the back, there's some play. So I don't know, it may fit, which would be great, but I don't think it will. So what I'm going to do is probably something along these lines, and I don't know if I probably can't get this thing apart now because it's all in here. There. I will take, let me come close. So this is the back side of the Magician where the die comes down right here. Now what we're going to do, I think, there's a little bit of play in this hole. Not a ton, but there's a little bit. If I don't have enough, I am going to grind down the back side. Maybe you should look at it instead of me having it down my waist. I'm going to grind down the back side of this tab, so when I put it in here, there will definitely be a gap on the back side that I can move the whole plate back and make room for that 1/2 inch. So I'll get the front piece put on. I'm going to tack the front piece on first. Then we're going to dry fit it, see if that works. If it doesn't work, I'm going to grind the tab down, and then we'll start clamping it up and start welding it together and see what we get. I put my jacket on. Here's why. You see that? You see 10 on there? 10? Let me show you this, just in case you're not. This is what it is in the rest of the world. Minus 12 out here. Maybe not out here. I shouldn't say that. Anyway, first thing I'm going to do is this thing was cut with either a torch or an axe. I'm not quite sure. It's pretty rough. I'm going to go ahead and cut I guess it's slag off the edge here, just so I have something to work with. But first, we're going to put some of these in because this promises to be loud. Got all the slag cut off. I could not find something like Dykem Blue in any of the stores that I have around here. I didn't go to a machine shop, or store, or whatever you would call it. Just went to a local, like Home Depot kind of things. Of course, they don't have any, but I've heard people using Sharpies. Okay, so I got it blued. I think it's going to dry. And we're going to scrape it. We're going to scribe it with this. Wow. That scale is hard. Oh, we got a pretty good line there. Should be able to see that. I'll finish scribing this out. Then we're going to use a cutoff wheel. Cut it up. I've got it partially put together here. I'm just going to drop it down in the base plate. Now, ordinarily you'd have this bottom die in here, and then you have the top die. Well, yeah, they don't come together, right? I mean, two pieces. So what we decided might not be a terrible thing to do when I finally get around to doing this, would be to have a die, something that goes all the way top to bottom. So I have a nice straight line to clamp, to work the back pieces to, and just make sure everything's lined up the way it needs to be. And then I'll go ahead and cut the bottom die and top die out of this piece. So that's kind of what we're at up to here. I got the long piece that we looked at last cut out and ready to go in here. I also did some work on this guy. Let me take it apart real quick here and show you what I did. Let's see. If I get up real close here, can you see that? Will it focus? Hopefully it's focusing. Not too bad. You see I kind of beveled all these corners off. We talked, I think I talked about the idea that we wanted to get in here and do a plug weld. Well, I didn't. I started to cut off the faces and realized all I have to really do is do these edges that I can just plug around the outside, grind it smooth, and it will be good. So I've got all of them done. What I need to do now is I got to grind off the back edge of this guy and the back edge of this guy to get room for the for this 1/2 inch. Because what I'm going to end up doing here is I'm going to clamp it. I'm going to tack this face on. I'm going to tack this face on, and then I'm going to clamp this up against here with a shim or two so that I get the spacing right. But I've got to have everything's got to be cut out and ground down and put together before I start doing any welding. So let me go ahead and get these guys ground off, and we'll come back. Let me show you what I did here. I on the top piece, so this would be the front where the die will go. Probably see it here. I ground off these back edges here. If I can show you that, kind of like that. And then on the bottom, it had 3 pins I had to deal with. So the bottom, this goes down into the base, this goes against the sides, and this is the front again. So all that's ground off. So now when I put it in the holes, I've got room to go back with it. I've already kind of loosely fit the this guy in there. I got plenty of play. So I think I'm ready to start tacking it up now. We're going to clamp it, tack it, and kind of just move it along. So I'll move it back over to the welding table here, and we'll get started. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp these two guys together so that this front piece is tight, and I'm going to go ahead and tack the front piece onto the side on both edges first thing. Then I'm going to come up here, do the same thing. I'm going to squeeze these guys together, make sure I have a good tight fit. I'll tack it on the edge. This is going to get tacked so I can actually take it off. I'm going to have to grind it off of here, so we're going to do that. We'll also clamp it this direction 2 different ways to make sure we're good and straight and tight. So let's get those going, and we'll get the welder fired up. Okay, so now I need to shim it, and this is my shim material, caffeine-free Diet Coke, the elixir of the gods. We're going to just kind of stick these guys in here like so. Let's see if we can't get this in here now. All right, very good. That went in. So that piece is going to come off, and we're going to clamp like that. Well, let's see. That was a good sign, I think. I hope. I got one more here. I can't get it past. I can get the back into that welded. I can get the back one here, the back of this plate here. And then I'll put this guy on here. I think it could be the last piece I put on. And then we got to get the whole thing welded to the base. So I think that's looking pretty good. Let's get a couple of welds thrown in here on the back side and just keep moving. Okay, it's the end of night 2. But we got a lot done. It's basically put together. My welds suck. I've also got to get, while this is tacked on here, I'm going to go ahead and drill into here. And once I get it drilled, then I can go ahead and tap it. So we're going to do, that'll be the next step, is to get this thing drilled out of here while this piece is still tacked on. And then I can cut it off once that's done. But anyway, there it is. It's coming along. It doesn't fall apart. It doesn't rattle. I think these holes are here in the face that Gary did are probably drilled for an M6 bolt. It's my guess. They're like 6.4-ish millimeters. I'm going to go with 1/4 inch bolts in here, and that's going to require me to do, for sure, going to be a 7/32 hole. Actually, a 7/32 hole for tapping. Whether I go 28 threads or 20 threads, and that's my dilemma right now. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I don't have any 28 thread bolts, but I do have a bunch of 20 thread bolts that I could put in here and just hold it together. So I don't know. Let's get this. This is a 1/4 inch bit. I'm going to go ahead and just mark the bottom of the hole so I can then I can grind this off. Or I shouldn't have to grind it off. I just drill through. I'll leave that on there. Okay, I got the bottoms marked, so now this thing should center itself as it goes down into there. I'll get these things drilled out, and we'll be ready to bolt it, even though I don't have any bolts. All right, there's the last one, and I ended up having to clamp this thing down to my table because without it, with the hole being out over this bevel here, where it is, every time I pushed down with the arbor, the whole thing wanted to tilt over. So this worked out pretty well. I just clamp it up, and we're good to go. Here it is. It's perfect. Oh, it's close. It actually doesn't really matter. I mean, I'll smooth this off, but this is just where you're going to hit. This is the side that's going to get hit with a hammer. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. I will try to get it fairly symmetrical so that, I'm not sliding one way or the other when I hit it. So there's one. Now I got to do one of these guys. The height isn't super critical. It needs to be square though, so. Look at my face. Remember at the beginning of this thing I said I was excited that I had enough material to get 2 dies out of that sheet? I'm not excited anymore. What a pain that was. All right, well, I have a top and bottom. I gotta I got to do a little grinding now to sand it, get them the right size. Back over to the vise and we'll see if we can't get that done. Okay, it's cold again. All right, with a combination of these kind of things, this flat disc for grinding and this sanding wheel for flapping wheel, whatever, for sanding, I have 2 dies made now. It's not perfect, but you know what? For what it's got to be used for, it's pretty nice. Let me change the angle here and I'll show you what I mean. All right, so 1/2 inch plate down on the bottom, down on the top. My little half rounds line up with each other. That's going to work perfect. It's going to work perfect. Now I think what I'm going to do in the future is I'm going to find someone who can laser cut these blanks out for me, because, wow, man, that's a lot of work. All right, well, I've been looking at this thing, and there's crud down in all these holes, so I'm going to have to go ahead. I got to do it anyway. I got to cut these welds off. I went ahead and went with 1/4 because 1/4 was just hard to find, and I got to looking and I thought, this will be fine. It'll be fine, I'm sure. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cut this off, and then we're going to tap these holes, and we'll bolt that thing on there and heat some metal. It's a little stuck still. Let's see if we can't drive it off of here. There we go. Maybe, as my grandmother used to say, just a titch more. Yeah. That's all it took. Okay, so that's there. Yeah, those holes are just full of crud. So we're going to get a drill bit. I'll clean these out and we'll start tapping. And put a little oil. Just a little bit of oil. That'll help. All right, got the last bolt going in. And there it is. Yippee, hooray. I'm excited because now I'm going to figure out a way to get something hot. I think we're going to use the foundry furnace here, and we're going to put it in there and we're going to smack it. Okay, I think we're plenty hot enough. Let's just go ahead and see if we can't burn my gloves. All right, all right, all right. Let's see if we can't use some tongs on here. Looky there. Looky there. Let's see if we can't get this in focus. Wonderfully even. It worked though. I'm pretty excited. I got a lot of practice to do obviously, but that's pretty cool. All right. Let's find a place to set this. Okay. That was great. Now this thing didn't hold up. that's okay. That's not Gary's fault. That's my fault. The steel is cheap, apparently. Pretty deformed on the top already, but the bottom held up fine because the metal it was hitting was soft, and so that's cool. I'm going to have fun with that. I got a lot to do, obviously a lot to learn on it, but I can see where the possibilities for this kind of thing are far-reaching. I mean, I can make flatters out of this. I can make bevels out of this. I can do all sorts of cool stuff. I mean, I could use this for putting a, whatever you call it, the groove, the thing that runs down the blade of a knife could run down this direction. There's just a million things you could do with these things. So pretty darn cool, pretty excited. All right, I'm going to link a couple of videos here, and I'm not going to link mine. I'm going to link Gary's only. I'm not going to link any of mine. I'll get no views, but that's all right. He deserves them. This one up here will be, no, this one up here will be the first time I think he built one of these things or showed it. He got it painted red. It's pretty cool. He actually uses it so you can see how they're used properly. I'll put the one down here that is this actual unit after he gets it cut out and he's kind of describing the features and how it works. And then as far as the rest is concerned, you want to hit that subscribe button, don't you? I'm sure you do. Have a great day.